Welcome back to the World According to Briggs. Today we rank all 50 states from lowest to highest when it comes to Hispanic population. Today we're using real population numbers, not politics, not guesses, and definitely not the opinion of some dude named Jerry that claims he has millions living in his state of North Dakota. Yes, that really happened. I had to inform Jerry that wasn't possible, seeing that North Dakota has less than 800 people total. 4 years ago we did this video and people complained that I ranked them by percentage. I'm gonna include percentage this year, but we're gonna rank it by total number. Let's take a look. Before we get rolling, let me know in the comment section where you think your state is gonna fall on this list. Then come back after you watch the entire thing to let us know how close you were. All right, let's take a look. Number 50, Vermont. Vermont's Hispanic population is small enough that everyone probably knows everyone else, or at least they recognize each other at the grocery store. This is a state that prides itself on maple syrup, leaves that turn color, and towns with one stoplight. Diversity here exists, but it's subtle, quiet, and very spread out. Vermont doesn't attract a large Hispanic migration because there aren't many jobs that pull people in. Housing is expensive for what you get, and winters feel like Mother Nature has a personal vendetta. If you're Hispanic in Vermont, you're not invisible, but you're definitely not making any politicians sweat about the Hispanic vote. Overall, there is 15,504 Hispanic people in Vermont. That's only about 2.4% of the population. 49, Maine. Maine has more lobsters than Hispanics, by far. The Hispanic population here is growing slowly, mostly tied to the seafood processing, healthcare, and service jobs along the coast. But Maine is still cold, rural, and economically limited outside a few pockets. That keeps numbers low. If you move here, you're probably not blended in. You're standing out in a flannel-heavy crowd. Maine has 26,609 Hispanics. That's about 2.4% of their population. 48, North Dakota. Ah, yes, where Jerry sent me an email from. That's the guy that claimed he had millions living in North Dakota. Oil did bring some diversity to North Dakota, and when the oil slowed, so did the growth. Hispanic residents here are often tied to energy, agriculture, and logistics. It's tough to sell long-term. Harsh winter, small towns, and isolation. People don't come here for the culture. They come here for a paycheck. When the paycheck shrinks, so does the population. So Jerry thought they had millions of Hispanics living in North Dakota. It's actually about 33,412. In 2024, their Hispanic population made up about 4.3% of the population. This is interesting though. 10 years ago, it was barely 2%. Number 47, West Virginia. West Virginia's economy has struggled for decades, and immigration hasn't exactly rushed in to save it. The Hispanic population here is small, scattered, mostly centered around service work and healthcare. This is a state that's losing people overall, so growth of any demographic is slow. Any Hispanic residents moving here, they're pioneers, not part of a wave. West Virginia has about 34,827 Hispanic people living in there currently. That's about 1.9% of their population. 46, South Dakota. Farming and meat processing explain most of South Dakota's Hispanic population. Sioux Falls has a few rural plants that account for a large share of it. Outside of work, there's not much keeping people here long term. The winters are long, the towns are small, and the options are limited. People come for jobs, not opportunity ladders. And when the jobs dry up, so does their will to stay here. South Dakota has a Hispanic population of 38,741. That makes up about 4.4% of their population. 45, Montana. Montana looks appealing until you try to live there. Housing is expensive, jobs are limited, and distances are massive. Hispanic residents often tied to construction, agriculture, and tourism work only. It's beautiful, sure, but beauty doesn't pay the rent. Unless you're in a sugar daddy, sugar baby relationship or a OnlyFans girl, I guess. But that's why the numbers are so low. Montana has about 45,199 Hispanic residents. That's about 4.2% of their population. 44, Alaska. Alaska's Hispanic population is surprisingly close to Wyoming and New Hampshire, but this is still a niche place to live. Jobs exist, but the isolation is very real. People don't usually move to Alaska accidentally. If you're Hispanic here, you're cashing a decent paycheck. You're heavily into adventure or both, and probably planning an exit strategy as I write this. Alaska has 49,824 Hispanics living there, which is a good portion of their population. It's actually 6.8%. Now, Alaska also has a very small population, so it's easier to pull that off. 43, Wyoming. Wyoming's Hispanic population is heavily tied to energy, construction, and ranching. Small towns mean small networks, and growth happens very slowly. There's opportunity here, but not scale. Once families grow, many look elsewhere. Wyoming's Hispanic population is about 59,046 residents. That's about 10.2% of their population. Again, Wyoming doesn't have a lot of people, so that high of a percentage is pretty easy to pull off. 42, New Hampshire. New Hampshire has jobs, proximity to Boston, and no income tax, but it still hasn't become a major destination for Hispanic migration. Housing costs are high, communities are small, and cultural infrastructure is limited. It's stable, not magnetic. I'm going to New Hampshire next month. If anyone has any taco places they could recommend, let me know in the comment section. New Hampshire has a Hispanic population of 59,454. That's about 4.3% of their population. 41, Delaware. Delaware punches above its weight considering its size. The Hispanic population here is concentrated in construction, poultry processing, and healthcare. Still, it's a small state with limited growth. Many people pass through rather than settle in for generations. Delaware's Hispanic population is about 104,290 residents. It's about 10.5% of their population. 40, Mississippi. Mississippi's Hispanic population has grown quietly, mostly tied to the agriculture and food processing. But we're talking about generations of Mississippians not even graduating from high school. It's a very rural state, and a lot of these families back in the day had no need for a high school education or college education. They had farms and things like that, so there was really no need. Well, the world's changing and they need it, and they're generations behind other states. Mississippi's Hispanic population is 105,220 Hispanics. That's about 3.6% of their population. Number 39, Hawaii. Hawaii is diverse but expensive. Hispanic residents are often working in tourism, construction, and services. The cost of living is brutal, and that keeps growth capped. Paradise isn't cheap, folks. Hawaii has a Hispanic population of about 138,923. That's about 9.5% of their population. 38, Rhode Island. Rhode Island has one of the more established Hispanic communities in New England. For the most part, it's Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. The state is small and crowded and expensive, but family networks keep them anchored here. And their Puerto Rican population especially goes back generations in Rhode Island. Rhode Island has a Hispanic population of about 182,101 residents. That's about 16.6% of their population, so that's a good percentage. Maybe that's where you get that spicy chowder there. I was at a restaurant, they had spicy chowder. I thought that was kind of not a thing, but it was pretty good years and years ago. I like Rhode Island. Providence is a little weird. People are rude, but Rhode Island overall, I think it's a pretty decent place to live. 37, Kentucky. Kentucky's Hispanic population has grown alongside manufacturing and logistics jobs. Still, it's a state where growth is cautious. People come for work, stay if the numbers make sense, but leave if they don't. This isn't a state where you're going to find generations of Hispanics. Before you say it, I'm sure there are some, but compared to other states, no. Most of the people of this state have Scottish ancestry. You hear it in their music and you taste it in their whiskey. Especially the music, the sound of jigs and reels, and then, of course, the fiddle. Very close to Scottish, like folk music or, the traditions of their homeland. But Kentucky has a Hispanic population of 207,854 residents. That's about 4.6% of their population. 36, Iowa. Agriculture and meat processing built Iowa's Hispanic population. Towns that were shrinking 30 years ago are now being kept alive by Hispanic families. It's not glamorous, but it's real growth. Their percentage is kind of low for a agricultural state. I mean, this whole state is built on farming and watching paint dry. And compared to the other ones like Nebraska and Kansas, their percentage is really low, but they have an overall Hispanic population of 215,986, which is only about 6.8% of their population. 35, Nebraska. Nebraska follows the same pattern as Iowa. Farming, logistics, steady jobs. Omaha and Lincoln anchor most of the population. Obviously, this is a very rural state, and they've got two major cities. So obviously, they're going to have a pretty high percentage when it comes to Hispanics because of the farming. But Nebraska has a Hispanic population of 234,715. That's 12% of their population. 34, Idaho. Idaho's Hispanic population is tied closely to farming and construction, especially in southern Idaho. The state is growing fast overall, but the housing prices are starting to slow the momentum. All those people complaining about Californians moving to Idaho, well, since your prices are rising, that'll slow that flood down and they'll start looking at other states. But don't worry, the next time the economy craters, that flow will go the other direction. Everyone heads to California when there's no jobs. That trend started back in the gold rush and then continued when we got to the Civil War, the Great Depression. Obviously, the Dust Bowl played a big part. When World War II fired up, all the military contractor jobs were out on the West Coast. It's the natural order of things. Idaho's Hispanic population is 239,407. That's about 13% of their population. 33, Arkansas. Poultry plants, farming, and logistics explain much of Arkansas's Hispanic growth. It's affordable, but wages lag. That keeps the numbers moderate. Arkansas has a Hispanic community of 256,847. That's about 8.5% of their population. 32, Alabama. Alabama's Hispanic population is growing quietly. It's tied to manufacturing and construction. It's not flashy growth, but it's functional. Alabama's also got a whole bunch of farming communities, rural areas where you'll find a lot of Hispanic workers. Alabama has a Hispanic population of 264,047 residents. That's about 5.3%. 31, Missouri. Missouri's Hispanic population centers around Kansas City and St. Louis, with steady but unspectacular growth. It's affordable, but it doesn't pull national attention. Missouri has a Hispanic population of about 303,068 residents. That's about 4.9% of their population. 30, Louisiana. Louisiana's Hispanic population grew after Hurricane Katrina and never fully left. Construction and service drives most of those numbers. The Hispanic population in Louisiana is about 322,549 residents. That's about 6.2% of their population. 29, Minnesota. Minnesota's Hispanic population is growing fast by Midwest standards, especially in the Twin Cities area. That's been picking up steam for about 20 years now. Cold weather definitely slows migration, but decent jobs keep people coming in. Minnesota has a Hispanic population of about 345,640 residents. That's about 6.1% of their population. 28, South Dakota. South Dakota has seen rapid Hispanic growth tied to construction, tourism, and manufacturing. It's affordable for now, and that really matters. South Carolina is starting to get popular, so that affordability thing may not be much of a thing in the next 10 years or so. South Carolina's Hispanic population is 352,838 residents. That's about 6.9% of their population. 27, Kansas. Kansas has one of the most important farming Hispanic populations in the country. It's steady, work-driven growth. Yeah, you want to see a state that's going to struggle as immigration crackdowns become more of a thing? It's going to be Kansas. And that'll affect what we get and how much we pay at the grocery store. Kansas' Hispanic population is 382,603 residents. That's about 13% of Kansas's population. 26, Wisconsin. Wisconsin's Hispanic population is tied to manufacturing and dairy, which if you don't know, Wisconsin's loaded with cows that give you all kinds of good dairy stuff. But cold weather does limit the amount of people moving in there. Wisconsin's Hispanic population sits around 447,290. That's about 7.6% of their population. 25, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's Hispanic population is growing faster than most people realize, driven by construction and energy-adjacent jobs. It's affordable and functional, which goes a long way. Oklahoma has a Hispanic population of about 471,931 residents. That's about 11.9% of their population. 24, Tennessee. Tennessee's growth is tied to logistics, manufacturing, and Nashville's economy, which is a big thing. There's a lot of hospitality jobs there and service sector jobs. That being said, costs are rising, but momentum is still pretty strong in Tennessee. Not just in Hispanic growth and everyone's growth. Tennessee has a Hispanic population of about 479,187. That's about 6.9% of their population. 23. Utah. Utah has one of the fastest growing Hispanic populations percentage-wise. Construction, service jobs, and a young population drive growth. They've always had a decent size Hispanic community in Utah, and it's been growing a lot in the last couple of years. Utah has a Hispanic population of about 492,912 residents. That is 15.1%. 22. Ohio. Ohio's Hispanic population is anchored by Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. It's steady, not explosive. Where they do have some farming, this is really a manufacturing state. And like so many Rust Belt states, they don't have as much manufacturing as they used to have. Now, it has been coming back slowly, but nothing like it was in the 80s and 90s. Or 70s and 60s for that matter. The Hispanic population in Ohio is 521,308 residents. That's about 4.4% of their population. 21. Indiana. Manufacturing and logistics make Indiana quite a magnet for the Hispanic community. Affordable housing keeps people staying as well. Now, this is also a big farming state. That also brings in a pretty good portion of their Hispanic population. Currently, Indiana has a Hispanic population of about 554,191 residents. That's about 8.2% of their population. 20. Michigan. Michigan's Hispanic population is centered around Detroit and farming. It would probably be a lot larger if it wasn't so cold. Oh, Michigan winters are so cold, even the tamales are bundled up. Now, Michigan is in the middle of a rebound, and it's helped stabilize growth for Hispanics and for basically every demographic. So their numbers should change pretty much in the next 10 years. Currently, Michigan has a Hispanic population of 564,422, which breaks down to about 5.6% of their population. 19. Oregon. Farming and construction drive Oregon's Hispanic population. Housing costs are starting to slow growth right now because construction's kind of down. And we only have a few months of real construction weather. If it wasn't for that, we'd probably have a lot more construction and Hispanic growth. The weather in Oregon does slow a lot of people from moving here. Oregon Hispanics own rain jackets they swear they didn't need back home. Oregon has a Hispanic population of 588,757 residents. That's about 13.9% of the population. Number 18, Connecticut. Connecticut has a dense Hispanic population, especially Puerto Rican communities. High costs keep growth modest, and the fact that, it's cold weather. Hispanics love a good cookout, and cookout in Connecticut with a Mexican family may actually end in snow, and that's never a good time. Connecticut has a Hispanic population of 623,293. That is about 17.3% of their population. 17. Maryland. Maryland benefits from federal jobs, healthcare, and its proximity to Washington, D.C. There are a lot of jobs in this part of the country, and that draws a lot of people in, and a good portion of them these days are Hispanic people. Maryland has a Hispanic population of 729,745, which is about 11.8% of their population. 16. Massachusetts. Massachusetts is home to large Dominican and Puerto Rican communities. They're the largest subgroup. That's followed by Salvadorians and Colombians. And these are concentrated in cities like Lawrence, Chelsea, Boston, and Lynn. Massachusetts is one of the most expensive states to live in, and this has kind of held their growth back a little bit. Massachusetts' Hispanic population is about 887,685 residents. That's about 12.6% of their population. Number 15, Nevada. Nevada's Hispanic population exploded alongside Las Vegas's growth. Tourism and construction drive everything here, especially in the Las Vegas area, obviously. And they love the casinos. Las Vegas is where Abuela wins $40 on slots and never lets anyone forget about it. Nevada's Hispanic population is 890,257 residents, and that's about 28.7% of their population. 14. Virginia. Northern Virginia accounts for much of this Hispanic population. Jobs bring in people, costs push some out. But again, they got really high paying jobs here, and even the support jobs around some of the big industries pay pretty good, so that brings them in. Not just Hispanics, pretty much everyone. Virginia's Hispanic population is 908,749 residents. That's about 10.5% of their population. 13. New Mexico. New Mexico's Hispanic population is deeply rooted, not new. Culture here isn't important, it's inherited. New Mexico only has a population of about 2 million residents, a little bit over. And about half of it is Hispanic. Like so many states in this part of the country, these were part of Mexico. So obviously, their Hispanic population is mostly Mexican. And if that shocks you, you don't understand the name. It's called New Mexico. But New Mexico has a Hispanic population of 1,010,811 residents. That's about 48.3% of the state's population. Yeah, like I said, almost half. Number 12, Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has almost as many Hispanics as New Mexico, but they also have 13 million people, not 2 million like New Mexico. But Pennsylvania's Hispanic population is growing fastest in the eastern cities. Its affordable housing helps this a lot. Pennsylvania has a Hispanic population of 1,049,615 residents. That's about 8.1% of their population. 11, Washington State. Tech industry fuels Washington's Hispanic population on the west side and farming on the east. Spokane and Pasco on the east side have very large Hispanic populations. Housing costs are the biggest obstacle in this state. Not as much on the eastern side, but definitely on the western side with Seattle and Tacoma. Washington has a Hispanic population of 1,059,213 residents. That's about 13.7% of their population. Number 10, North Carolina. North Carolina has one of the fastest growing Hispanic populations in the South. Makes sense. North Carolina is becoming the best state to move to in the South. The Tar Heel state's quality of life scores are far better than every single one of the other southern states. Why are Hispanics moving there? Jobs and affordability. Those always drive growth. Yeah, I think a lot of people are starting to catch on that North Carolina is a great state to live in right now. I mean, it's been getting more and more popular over the last 10 years, but I think that's about to go into overdrive. North Carolina has a Hispanic population of 1,118,596. That's about 10.7% of their population. Number 9, Georgia, the Peach State. Metro Atlanta accounts for a huge share of Georgia's Hispanic population. They do have some other ones. Columbus has a large Hispanic population. A lot of that has to do with the military. And even down to Savannah, they got a pretty good sized Hispanic community there too. Georgia has a lot of construction jobs right now, and as we've noticed throughout this list, that drives the Hispanic population to an area. But the military also plays a big part in pretty much everything in Georgia, and a lot of the soldiers and airmen in the state are Hispanic Americans. Now, technically, they're not residents of the state. In most cases, they're just passing through. It's like a transient population. When you come to the military, you stay someplace for a year or just for school, and maybe 2 years, then you go. But a lot of them do have families that they settle down outside of forts and the communities around the fort. They become permanent residents. Georgia has a Hispanic community of 1,123,457 residents. That's about 10.5% of their population. Number 8, Colorado. Colorado's Hispanic population has deep roots and modern growth. This is very much a Hispanic state. But housing costs have become an issue, and it's driving a lot of Hispanic people out of the state. Now, they're still growing a little bit, but if the housing wasn't so darn expensive, they'd have a lot more people moving in, not just Hispanics. But currently, Colorado has a Hispanic population of 1,263,390 residents. That's about 21.9% of the state's population. Number 7, New Jersey. New Jersey has one of the most concentrated Hispanic populations in the country. Dense, urban, and established. Again, a lot of Dominicans and a lot of Puerto Ricans. New Jersey has a Hispanic population of 2,002,575. That's about 21.6% of New Jersey's population. Number 6, Arizona. Arizona's Hispanic population is central to the state's identity. I mean, the state's surrounded by other heavy Hispanic states. California, New Mexico, obviously the country of Mexico, and Colorado a little bit, and Nevada. So Arizona does have a lot of Hispanics, and growth is steady and ongoing. Arizona's Hispanic population is 2,192,253. That's about 30.7% of their population. Number 5, Illinois. Chicago anchors Illinois' Hispanic population. They've got long established communities that dominate entire swaths of the Chicago metro area. On top of it, they do have a lot of farming, which again, attracts a lot of Hispanic people. But Illinois' Hispanic population is 2,337,410 residents. That's about 18.2% of the land of Lincoln. Number 4, New York. Puerto Rican and Dominican communities define New York's Hispanic population. Massive, historic, and still growing. If this surprised anyone, you haven't been paying attention. But New York's Hispanic population is 3,948,032 residents. That's about 19.5% of the New York population. Number 3, Florida. Cuban, Puerto Rican, Venezuelan, Colombian. Florida's got them all. I mean, they have little areas called things like Little Havana. If you break it down by area, you got South Florida with, Miami and Fort Lauderdale. That's home to the largest Cuban population and got a significant number of Colombians, Venezuelans, and other South American people. Then you have Central Florida with Orlando and Tampa Bay. These are major destinations for Puerto Rican immigrants, but you also have big Mexican communities in Orlando and Tampa alongside them. Florida's Hispanic population is 5,697,240. That's about 26.5% of Florida's population. Number 2, Texas. Texas isn't growing Hispanic, it is Hispanic. This state was part of Mexico. There was a little bit of a war over it. Remember the Alamo? If you ever go to San Antonio, go look at the Alamo. Maybe take the tour. Don't expect too much. There's a lot of history there, but there's really not much to it. I don't know. I was a little disappointed in it. It was interesting because I knew the background, but I don't know. I was expecting more. That being said, Texas has got a lot of Hispanic people. They're part of the economy, the history, and the food. Tex-Mex, ever heard of it? Right now, Texas has a Hispanic population of 11,441,717 residents. That's 39.3% of their population. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it. Leave me a comment. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, California. Anyone see this coming? California has more Hispanics than many countries. This isn't a trend, it's the foundation of the state's workforce, culture, and future. I grew up in Southern California. Matter of fact, my neighborhood was so Mexican that they called me Yellowhead because I was like the only dude on the block with blonde hair. It was very much a Mexican neighborhood. I went to school and it would make up about 40% of the population. Even when I went to a private Catholic school, I'd say about 30 to 40% of my classmates were Hispanic. California was part of Mexico until like 20 years before we had the Civil War, so it hasn't even been 200 years. And we got it just in time, 1846, because around 1849 is when we discovered gold, and that state has been rich ever since. California has a Hispanic population of 15,579,652. That's about 39.4% of their population. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.